75 now, and I can't remember anybody.
Queen Camilla entered the planning chamber expecting to approve the final details of the coronation anniversary. Instead, she found her folders removed, her chair pushed away from the head of the table, and a sealed court directive waiting beneath the palace crest. Within minutes, the queen learned that every decision she had made was under review, and that, from that moment forward, she no longer possessed any authority over the ceremony created to celebrate her own crowning. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Camilla stopped beside the empty place at the table. The coronation anniversary, a national commemoration marking the crowning of the king and queen, included a service at Westminster Abbey, a palace reception, appearances, broadcasts, charitable events, and a controlled guest list. For months, every detail had become proof that her place beside Charles was secure. She had expected the final word. Her office had circulated schedules carrying handwritten changes to the music, seating, wardrobe, invitations, and public message. The queen believed those notes would shape the ceremony. Instead, 3 courtiers stood near the door while she broke the seal and read the order that erased them. The Royal Household Court, the senior palace body overseeing official royal business, had issued a binding directive. It removed Queen Camilla from the anniversary committee, cancelled her approval powers, transferred control to a court-appointed planning council, and ordered her staff to surrender all files before noon. There was no negotiation. Camilla read the sentence twice. None of her previous instructions remained valid. She set the paper down and asked, "Who authorized this?" No one answered. The silence answered her. Charles's chair remained empty beside her. The king had not come. He had sent no note and offered no protection. For Camilla, that absence cut deeper than the order, because it meant someone close to the crown had allowed the court to move against her. An aide stepped forward. Her digital access had already been suspended. The committee files had been transferred, and staff once assigned to her now reported elsewhere. The queen reached for her private secretary, but the system had moved faster than her anger. Then she saw William's signature. The prince had endorsed the recommendation beneath several names. His approval did not create the order alone, yet it made the humiliation personal. Camilla closed the folder, straightened her sleeve, and dismissed the courtiers. When the door shut, she gripped the table and stared at the missing chair. But this did not begin there. It began with Charles, William, and one anniversary proposal she had refused to surrender. The anniversary was never simply about crowns, music, or ceremony. For Camilla, it was proof that decades of rejection had finally ended. For Charles, it was a reminder of the day duty and private devotion became inseparable. For William, however, the occasion carried a far more dangerous meaning. He saw a ceremony drifting away from the crown and toward one person's need for vindication, and he believed the monarchy could not afford to become the stage for that private battle. Camilla had invested more than time in the event. She saw the anniversary as the final chapter in her fight for legitimacy, the point at which suspicion would finally give way to acceptance. The queen wanted the commemoration, a national event marking the coronation, to present her position as permanent and beyond challenge. William saw danger where she saw closure. The prince believed the program should center on service, continuity, and the crown itself, meaning the institution that survives each monarch. He feared that a celebration built around personal vindication would reopen painful memories and weaken the future he was trying to protect. Charles felt pressure from both sides. He understood why his wife wanted recognition after years of hostility, but he also understood his son's warning. The king knew the monarchy could not be used to settle private wounds. Yet every day he delayed speaking made Camilla feel abandoned and William feel ignored. Catherine noticed the fracture before anyone named it aloud. During a private breakfast, she watched her husband reread the draft program and pause at the reduced role assigned to him. The Princess of Wales, the title held by the wife of the direct heir, saw his jaw tighten as new tributes to Camilla filled the pages. Catherine asked whether he intended to challenge it. William folded the schedule, placed it beside his untouched coffee, and said he would not allow the anniversary to become a loyalty test between his father and the family. She heard control in his voice, but she also heard hurt. Palace staff had already divided. Camilla's office argued that the ceremony must show the king and queen as one partnership. William's advisors warned in documented briefing notes that the program had crossed from commemoration into personal glorification. Charles had received 2 confidential memoranda, written warnings meant only for senior royal eyes. Both cautioned that the changes threatened protocol, guest neutrality, and William's constitutional visibility. He read them, removed his glasses, and sat motionless beside the file. That silence could not last. One proposal was about to reach the court, and it would force the household to decide whether Camilla was marking history or rewriting it in her own image. Every royal crisis has one moment that appears small, until history looks back and recognizes the rupture. In this case, it came during a closed rehearsal meeting inside Clarence House. A single page was passed across the table. One paragraph had been marked in blue ink. When William finished reading it, he did not argue, raise his voice, or seek clarification. He simply closed the program and asked Camilla whether she truly intended to make the crown endorse what she had written. Camilla had spent months reshaping the anniversary. She replaced neutral history with tributes to her endurance, sacrifice, and survival. Each change looked modest alone, yet together they pulled the event away from the institution and toward her private story. Clarence House, the London residence used by Charles and Camilla, had become the center of that struggle. Court officials tried to stop the drift. The Planning Council, the group responsible for coordinating the ceremony, offered softer wording, shared roles, and a shorter tribute. Camilla rejected each compromise because she believed reduction meant rejection. To her, the anniversary was not simply a date. It was the moment the monarchy would finally confirm that she belonged. The marked page carried the breaking point. Camilla had inserted a Queen's Recognition Address, a formal speech praising her public sacrifice and role in stabilizing the crown. It would be delivered before Charles spoke. William read the paragraph again, then told her the monarchy could not command forgiveness through ceremony. Camilla did not yield. She told the prince that she had stood beside Charles while others treated her as temporary, useful only when silent. William answered that the crown could honor service, but it could not rewrite pain into obedience. His calmness made the refusal feel final. Charles remained still. Camilla turned to the king and asked him to confirm that the address would remain. He moved his pen away from the page and said only that the wording needed reconsideration. That hesitation wounded her more than a direct rejection. Camilla acted after the meeting. Through a documented instruction sent to her staff, she ordered the address retained and the program circulated to selected participants before the council could remove it. The message created an official record of her bypassing the agreed process. William left Clarence House and requested a review from the Lord Chamberlain's office, the department overseeing major royal ceremonies. He asked for safeguards, not removal. Yet the request opened every file. That evening, Camilla received a copy. She tore her speech in half but kept the marked page. By then, the court had found more unsigned instructions, and the private quarrel was becoming a dangerous formal judgment. The room was prepared for negotiation, but no one entered it intending to surrender. Camilla arrived carrying the original program. William brought the court review. Charles came with nothing in his hands at all. When the doors closed and the aides withdrew, 3 members of the royal family were left facing a question none of them could soften. Had the Queen exceeded her authority, or had the future king used procedure to humiliate a woman he had never fully forgiven? Charles had called the meeting as a final attempt to stop the damage. The king wanted Camilla involved, but only under strict limits, while William believed all ceremonial control had to be transferred. Ceremonial authority meant the power to approve the order, wording, roles, and meaning of an official royal event. Neither side came ready to bend. Camilla moved first. She placed the revised program before William and asked whether he truly believed she was unfit to organize her own anniversary. The Queen opened the document to the recognition address, then pushed it toward him. He did not touch it. William answered with painful calm. The ceremony belonged to the crown, he said, not to one person's need for vindication. The prince admitted their history carried wounds, but he refused to let suffering become permission to demand institutional praise. Camilla's control cracked. She accused William of hiding an old debt behind protocol. Her voice broke once as she said he had waited years for the chance to prove she could still be removed whenever the family decided she had gone too far. Charles finally rose. He told them both to stop. The monarch admitted his wife had crossed the agreed boundary, yet he also told his son that the review had turned punishment into humiliation before any ruling had been announced. His words pleased neither of them. Camilla then produced a handwritten note. Charles had once called the recognition address moving, and she claimed that single word proved his support. The king read the page in silence while William reminded them that an emotional comment was not formal approval. Worse, she had circulated the program after Charles requested changes. Charles placed the note face down. Camilla watched his hand leave it, and understood that he would not use it to save her. The king then delivered the sentence she feared. He would not interfere with the court's final recommendation. To William, it was restraint. To Camilla, it was abandonment. Charles had chosen silence over judgment, but silence was not neutral. It handed the Queen's fate to officials who were already preparing to strip away far more than one anniversary program inside the royal household itself. Royal power rarely moves with a shout. It travels through signatures, sealed memoranda, access codes, and carefully worded instructions delivered by people who never appear on palace balconies. While Camilla and William fought over motive, the court examined something colder. What the Queen had been permitted to do, what she had merely assumed she could do, and whether the anniversary had exposed a dangerous confusion between personal influence and constitutional authority. Senior officials opened every file. The court review, a formal examination of whether royal powers were used correctly, brought together advisors responsible for ceremony, constitutional coordination, finances, security, and communications. Their task was not to judge Camilla's popularity. They had to decide whether she had exceeded authority delegated through Charles's household. Camilla had never possessed independent control over the anniversary. The Queen could guide music, guests, wording, and ceremonial details only within limits set by the king and the crown. Those limits mattered because royal influence becomes dangerous when personal wishes begin to look like official commands. William could not issue the order alone, yet the prince's constitutional position, as the direct heir, gave his warning enormous weight. His written endorsement told the household that the next reign would not accept Camilla's wider interpretation of her role. Charles held the decisive power by refusing to stop the process. The king's silence allowed officials to treat the dispute as an institutional breach, not a private family misunderstanding. He knew that choice would wound his wife, but protecting her now meant weakening every boundary he had failed to define before. The Lord Chamberlain entered Charles's private study carrying the final recommendation. The senior officer, who oversees major royal ceremonies and household order, paused at the removal clause and asked whether the monarch wished to amend it. Charles looked away and said the anniversary must serve the crown. The review listed every breach. Camilla's office had circulated an unapproved program, attempted to alter the order of precedence, reserved prominent seats for personal allies, and reduced William and Catherine's roles without written consent. More damagingly, the recommendation reached beyond one event. Every future ceremonial instruction from her office would require written clearance. Charles asked everyone except the Lord Chamberlain to leave. He took the pen, hesitated, then signed. His hand remained on the page for several seconds. The machinery moved instantly. Staff assignments changed, files transferred, access permissions vanished, and public language was rewritten before Camilla finished reading the order. Silence had produced the decision, but its consequences were already racing toward her. By noon, the Queen would discover that punishment on paper was only the beginning. The palace had already started learning how to continue without her. By afternoon, the anniversary continued as though Camilla had never controlled it. Meetings were relocated. Her handwritten notes disappeared from briefing folders. Calls once directed to her office were rerouted to the new council. The Queen remained inside the palace, still carrying her title, and still expected to attend the ceremony. Yet the event bearing the memory of her coronation was being rebuilt beyond her reach. The punishment was not exile. It was enforced irrelevance. The transfer began at once. The new planning council, the group now responsible for approving every anniversary detail, took possession of passwords, correspondence, guest recommendations, budget notes, and ceremonial drafts. Camilla's staff were ordered to surrender each file without changing a word. That mattered because every annotation now became evidence of how far her office had pushed. The program changed just as quickly. The Queen's recognition address disappeared, and the ceremony shifted toward national service, constitutional continuity, Charles's reign, and the duties of the next generation. Constitutional continuity meant preserving the crown through an orderly transfer of responsibility. William and Catherine regained the ceremonial roles that Camilla's draft had reduced. Camilla watched the dismantling in silence. One young aide lifted a box filled with months of her notes and apologized before carrying it away. She told him he was only following instructions, but after he left, her composure weakened. The Queen understood that loyal attendants could now be blamed for obeying her. Her private office felt abandoned. Several staff members feared reassignment, public suspicion, or quiet dismissal. Camilla could no longer pretend the crisis concerned only her pride. Her insistence had pulled people with no real power into a struggle between the king's wife and the future king. The empty room delivered the deepest blow. Camilla entered alone after the transfer ended. Her place card had vanished. The central chair stood against the wall, and the master calendar no longer carried her initials. She touched the bare space where her folders had rested. Sophie found her there. The Duchess of Edinburgh, Charles's sister-in-law and a trusted working royal, did not defend Camilla's actions. She simply admitted that watching months of work disappear in one afternoon was cruel. Camilla told Sophie she might refuse to attend. She would not become a ceremonial figurehead invited to witness her own defeat. Then a formal schedule arrived from Charles's office. No note accompanied it. She left the envelope unopened. Sophie warned that absence would let humiliation define her completely. That evening, Charles requested a private meeting, and the marriage itself moved toward judgment. Behind the closed door, they would decide whether the order had stripped away authority or broken the trust beneath their marriage. There were no folders between them, no officials waiting to explain procedure, and no son standing nearby to challenge what was said. Charles entered Camilla's sitting room alone. She did not rise to greet him. For several moments, husband and wife remained separated by the silence he had allowed to grow. Then Camilla asked the question she had carried since the order arrived. Did he believe she had become a danger to the crown? Or had he simply stopped believing she was worth defending? Charles had dismissed every aide before entering. The king carried no notes because any formal explanation would sound like another ruling. Camilla remained beside the unopened anniversary schedule, the official timetable showing where each royal would enter, sit, speak, and leave. She wanted honesty, not procedure. Their history made the silence heavier. Camilla and Charles had survived public condemnation, family resistance, institutional caution, and decades of scrutiny. She believed that endurance had created one certainty. When the palace turned against her, he would stand between them. Now that belief had collapsed. Camilla asked whether William had forced his hand. Charles said the prince had raised the alarm, but no son had signed in his place. The decision became unavoidable because she continued after being asked to stop. He would not hide behind William. Charles then admitted his own failure. He had praised her ideas privately, softened objections, and allowed affection to replace clarity. By never defining the limits of her role, the monarch had taught her to mistake emotional support for royal authorization. Camilla finally broke the seal. Her recognition address was gone, yet the revised program still placed her beside Charles at the entrance, during the service, and at the departure. She read those lines twice. Charles explained the difference. The court had removed her control over the event, not her place in their marriage or her status beside him. He would not restore her authority, but he would not allow the anniversary to become public degradation. Camilla stayed silent before admitting the truth. She had designed the address to make the country say what it had never freely chosen to say. Ceremonial praise had become a substitute for emotional closure, and she had pushed too far. Charles reached for her hand. She withdrew it, read the final page, then placed the schedule between them and let her hand rest beside his. Camilla chose to attend. She would follow the approved program and issue no rival instructions. Yet beyond the palace gates, one photograph and one headline would decide whether the world saw surrender, defiance, or change. The private battle was over, but the public judgment had only just begun outside. The palace had hoped to describe the change as a routine restructuring. By sunrise, that language had collapsed. Newspapers carried the Queen's removal across their front pages. Broadcasters replayed footage from the coronation, and crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace, searching for signs of division. Camilla's private defeat had become a national spectacle. Yet the image that ultimately defined the day was not one of rage or collapse. It was a single, controlled moment outside Westminster Abbey. The official statement tried to contain the damage. It confirmed that anniversary planning had moved to a central ceremonial council, the senior group now coordinating every formal part of the event, to preserve institutional balance. It mentioned no family conflict, no unauthorized instructions, and no role played by William. Broadcasters rejected that careful language within minutes. Commentators called the transfer an extraordinary reduction of Camilla's influence and asked whether the court had protected constitutional discipline or exposed a household divided between the current queen and the future king. One front page captured the humiliation. Beneath a photograph of Camilla leaving the planning chamber, it declared, "Crown takes control. Queen removed from her own anniversary." Her face remained composed while an official carried the disputed program behind her. Crowds gathered beside the Buckingham Palace railings as the royal convoy prepared to leave. Some spectators called Camilla's name in support. Others held signs praising the court for placing the institution above personal power. The Queen heard both sides. William faced his own judgment. Some commentators accused the prince of using procedure to pursue a cold personal reckoning. Before entering Westminster Abbey, the historic church used for coronations and major royal services, he paused beside Catherine and said that protecting the crown sometimes meant accepting blame he could not answer publicly. Camilla stepped from the car as the noise intensified. She hesitated, looked toward Charles and accepted the king's offered arm without moving ahead of him. At the entrance, she saw William waiting. The Queen stopped and gave a restrained nod. He returned it. That brief exchange changed the mood. Charles opened the revised service with a reflection on duty. William followed with a message about responsibility across generations. Camilla then read a short passage about service, without mentioning her own struggle. The ceremony did not erase criticism, but it altered the verdict. Her restraint showed that dignity did not require control. For once, surrender looked less like weakness, and more like royal discipline. Afterward, Camilla returned to the palace, knowing the public crisis had passed. One final conversation with William remained, and it would decide whether their nod had been a temporary ceasefire or the beginning of a permanent new balance. The anniversary ended without disruption, but nothing returned to the way it had been. Camilla still wore the title of queen. She still stood beside Charles. Yet the authority she once believed came naturally with that position had been permanently narrowed. William had protected the institution, but he had also forced a painful reckoning upon his father's wife. The final verdict would not be delivered through another order. It would emerge from what each of them chose to accept after the ceremony was over. The court's directive remained in force. Camilla would not return to the anniversary committee. None of her decisions would be restored, and every future ceremonial proposal from her office would require written approval from the central household, the senior palace structure controlling royal work. The revised program remained unchanged, centered on service, continuity, Charles's reign, and the monarchy's future. Camilla asked William to remain after the reception. With no aides inside the drawing room, the Queen told him the intervention may have been necessary, but the speed of her removal had turned correction into humiliation. William did not apologize for requesting the review. The prince admitted that the transfer deepened her isolation, yet he said private warnings had failed. He had acted to protect the crown, not to erase her place beside Charles. Camilla finally named her own mistake. She had used the anniversary to seek approval from the monarchy and the public. By demanding that the ceremony validate her history, she had placed personal need above royal discipline. Then Camilla reached into her handbag. She removed the preserved recognition address page, folded it once, and told William it would never be used. He refused to take it. The Queen carried it to the fireplace and destroyed it herself. Charles kept his marriage, but he lost the comfort of silence. The king now understood that love without boundaries could become another form of betrayal. William gained authority, but he also learned that future kingship would often make duty look cruel. Camilla left with less influence, but greater self-awareness. Her dignity no longer depended on controlling the ceremony. It came from accepting the ruling and refusing to damage the crown after defeat. The decision had humiliated her, but it had not erased her. Camilla remained queen, yet the anniversary proved that titles granted visibility, not unlimited power. And as the anniversary lights faded across the palace, the monarchy stood altered but intact, its family wounded, its boundaries restored, and its future secured by a truth none of them could ignore again. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.